Hello and welcome to class number 15 of this quick revision series for UPSC Prelims 2024. I hope all of you are doing good and you have been attending all the other classes as well. In case you have missed out on any of the earlier session, I am pasting the link of the entire playlist in the description of this video. You can see, and also in case you want the PDF of these lectures, you can join my Telegram channel. The link again is in the description of this video. Today again we'll be discussing some of the most important news stories from environment point of view. First, Indian Forest and Wood Certification Scheme. Now the government of India launched this particular scheme to promote sustainable development of forests and agroforestry. What exactly is the scheme all about? What will happen? Let's try and understand. The idea is simple. Under this particular scheme, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, they want to ensure that there is certification given to different trees. So different trees will be given different certification so that the people who are using wood from that tree are sure whether or not they can use it or not. This scheme will cover three main areas: sustainable forest management, sustainable management of trees outside the forest, and also ensuring that they can trace all the forest produce from their supply chain. Where are they coming from? Where is the wood coming from, etc. The idea is simple. Let's say someone is building furniture. Now, when you ask the person from where did you get the wood to build furniture, they might give any random answer. I got wood from there or there. What is the source of the wood? It is not easy to trace the source of the wood. So you are never sure if there was an illegal cutting of the tree. With these certifications given to different trees, given to different forests, you can be 100% sure what was the source of this wood so that you can trace it in the supply chain and see if something illegal had happened. The scheme will be overseen by Indian Forest and Wood Certification Council. Also, Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal will help in implementation of this entire scheme. National Accreditation Board for certification bodies under the Quality Council of India will be the one that will give certificate under this particular scheme to different forests. Now, the scheme, as I said, also focuses on trees that are outside the forest. What do you mean by those? Basically, those trees that are not under the area that is categorized as forest. Please understand this. In India, even the area that does not have trees can be categorized as forest. On the other hand, there can also be trees that are outside the forest or designated forest areas. Thus, if there are trees outside the forest, means those trees going outside the notified forest. They can also be on private land of the institution and industry. They can be all the trees in different models of agroforestry, urban, rural forestry, all of that will be included. The idea is to ensure that there is trust and transparency in the wood products. For example, these days, when you go and buy vegetables, a lot of farmers will tell you, a lot of companies selling vegetables will tell you this is an organic vegetable or this is an organic fruit. How do you be sure that this is organic or not? You need some kind of certification to prove that the method used for cultivation was organic. Similar is the case with wood as well. When you go and buy some wood made products or furniture, how do you get surety that this has been ethically sourced wood? That is how this certification scheme will come into the picture. It can provide market incentive to entities that adhere to responsible practices. People who want to buy products that are made sustainably would prefer buying these kind of materials from the market. Next important news, the E20 fuel. Union Minister recently had said that it is not too long that the E20 fuel will be available in the market commercially. E20 fuel, as you know, is blending of 20% ethanol with petrol. The government of India has been trying to push towards this idea for a very, very long time. The idea is that if you use 100 liters of petrol, out of that 20 liters should be ethanol and 80 would be petrol. There are a lot of distinctive advantages of this. It is environment friendly. It will help reduce its import bill of all this crude oil. It will also help us to have a sustainable or to have an alternate method of earning for the farmers as well, who can use their produce to produce ethanol. Now, we have been trying to increase the blending ratio of ethanol slowly. It's not that easy. There has to be a lot of research going through it. But now we are ready, and the minister says at about 1000 outlets of petrol pumps, you will see E20 fuel being sold. The government of India is also, as you know, giving a push to green hydrogen as well. The government of India aims to produce 5 million metric tons per annum of green hydrogen by 2030. Both of these, ethanol blended petrol and green hydrogen, have been the focus of government policies in the past few years. Let's first focus on ethanol. Now, ethanol is a byproduct of a lot of crops. That is why it is sustainable. The supply can be ensured in large quantities in India. It is mainly produced from the processing of sugar from sugarcane, but there are other commodities as well, such as rice husk and maize, etc. In fact, this is why many people have pointed out that the stubble burning issue that we have in North India, maybe that can also be taken care of if we focus on producing ethanol from this rice husk. The E20 blend will be 20% ethanol with 80% petrol. The pilot project was launched in Feb 2023. It covers 15 cities and it will be rolled out across the entire country. We started very slowly. In 2013-14, we blended 1.53% of ethanol with petrol. By 2022, we reached 10.17%. The government of India had earlier aimed that we should reach 20% target of ethanol blending by 2030. But now the government, being optimistic, has preponed the target and said that we will achieve this by 2025 itself. So that is a good news that India is preponing its own target significantly. There are a lot of advantages of E20 fuel. However, I would like to clarify a couple of things very quickly. Please understand, we are talking about ethanol, not methanol. That is different. Secondly, ethanol blending is only with petrol and not diesel. Later on, we will read about how methanol is being blended with diesel for railways purposes. But this ethanol blending is only with petrol and not with diesel. Do remember that. This is expected to improve engine performance, reduce the maintenance cost of the engine. It will help in cutting down the emissions such as carbon monoxide, hydrocarbon, nitrogen oxides, etc. There have been multiple studies that suggest if we blend 5% ethanol with petrol, we can cut down our use of petrol or crude oil by 1.8 million barrels. So there is a significant amount of saving of foreign exchange that we can have. If we implement E20 program successfully, we can save 30 crore rupees per annum or $4 billion of foreign exchange. Such is the potential of this particular program, and that is why the government is working towards this. As I said, apart from E20, one other focus of the government in this field of green energy is green hydrogen. We discussed about this. This has been in the news for a couple of years now. Hydrogen as a fuel is not new. Hydrogen as a fuel is used in many parts of the world. However, how do you produce that hydrogen? That is significant. Green hydrogen is produced by electrolysis of water. In simple terms, water is H2O. So you break it into hydrogen and oxygen, separate it. This process of separating hydrogen and oxygen in water, it is called electrolysis. So the idea is electrolyzing water will result in hydrogen, which will be called as green hydrogen. Why? Because it does not pollute the environment while you make this particular hydrogen. Entire world, including India, is looking very optimistically on the potential of green hydrogen to replace other forms of fuel. India has a potential to become a leader. See, in this process of making green hydrogen, there are two important things. First, availability of water, and second, availability of these electrolytes. Can you actually gather enough to make it in large numbers? That will determine whether a country is successful or not. Right now, the green hydrogen that is being produced is at a very high cost. Any new technology that comes in first is at a high cost. Only when it scales to a large extent, then the cost comes down. Same will happen most probably with green hydrogen as well. Our target is to produce 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen per annum by 2025-26. This is a part of India's national hydrogen mission. The government is also focusing on how to ensure transportation of green hydrogen. If it is, let's say, produced in one state, let's say in Assam, how do you then transfer it to Maharashtra, Kerala through pipelines, etc.? That is also infrastructure that has to be built by the government. There are multiple nations around the world that are using ethanol blending at a very, very large scale. The one country that is at the topmost rank when it comes to using ethanol in their fuel is Brazil. They have the largest and the most successful biofuel program in the entire world. It is considered to have the world's first sustainable biofuels economy. They have even developed technology where they can run their vehicles, run their machines entirely on ethanol as well. US and Brazil together produce 82% of the world's ethanol right now. Majority of the US ethanol is produced by corn, while Brazil usually uses its sugarcane. Brazil, as you know, is one of the largest producers of sugar in the world. I'll tell you something interesting here. If you see in the past couple of years, India has taken over Brazil as the largest producer of sugar. Brazil used to be rank 1, India used to be rank 2. One of the reasons why India has overtaken Brazil and Brazil has come down is that Brazil is now focusing more on using its sugarcane for ethanol rather than actually using it for sugar only. That is also one of the reasons why we see a change in this pattern, in this ranking of sugar production around the world. On similar lines, another initiative that was in the news was the Global Biofuel Alliance, one of the outcomes of the G20 summit. The world right now understands the importance of biofuel, and countries are working together to see how can we have new forms of biofuel. India is also leading here. 19 countries and 12 international organizations agreed to support the Global Biofuel Alliance. Countries such as US, Brazil, India, which are major biofuel producers, have decided to work together, share knowledge and expertise, and help in enhancing the capacity and production of biofuels. Now, how do you define biofuel? There is not just one, but various ways and examples of biofuel. In simple terms, any hydrocarbon fuel produced from an organic matter. Organic matter means something that is living or used to live, like plants are living beings, right? So any fuel produced from plants will be a biofuel. So any fuel produced from an organic matter in a short period of time. Short would be weeks, days, or even months. For example, coal or oil cannot be in this category. Why? Coal and oil also are produced through organic matter only, but it takes thousands and millions of years to produce coal and produce oil. So those are not considered as biofuels. Or biofuels, that is an important parameter. It has to be produced in a short period of time. They can be used as an alternate to multiple other fuels, to power vehicles, for generating heat, etc. They are renewable. Because they can be produced in a short span of time, that is what makes them more important and easy to use. One of the issues with oil is, or oil or rather coal also, is that it takes so much time to produce it in nature that once you exhaust the resources, you have to wait for thousands of years before it is replenished. Biofuels are not only liquid or gas, they can also be solid. For example, dried plant material, manure. Liquid biofuels include ethanol. Gaseous form can be biogas as well. It can be used for a lot of purposes, generating heat, electricity, powering vehicles, so on and so forth. Now, over the years, there have been different generations of biofuels that have come up around the world. There are total 4 generations of biofuel right now. The first one was the easiest one. It was made from food sources like sugar, starch, vegetable oil, etc. It included biodiesel, bioalcohol, etc. Then the second generation biofuels, they were produced from non-food crops. See, the idea is, if you produce fuel from the food that you are supposed to eat, then it creates a dilemma. For example, let's say I have sugar in front of me and I have 2 options. Either I can eat that sugar or I can make fuel from that sugar. The problem is, a lot of people will start diverting sugar towards making fuel. It will lead to issues such as sugar not being available in the market for general consumption. So when you make biofuels from the food that you're supposed to eat, it is not the best or ideal situation, because you are diverting food from your table into your vehicles or into your generators, which is again not an ideal situation. So the second generation of biofuel was to make biofuel from non-food crops, means crops that are not edible, that are considered as waste. The reason is simple. Again, there should not be any dilemma between choosing to eat and choosing to generate fuel. Also, biochemical conversion reactions etc. are being used to produce such fuels in the second generation. Then there are third generation biofuels. They are produced from microorganisms such as algae, for example, butanol. Microorganisms such as algae etc. can be grown using land or water that are unsuitable for food production. Fertilizers can also be used in this production. Then the fourth generation one, these are the most high-tech ones. These are genetically engineered crops that can be used to convert into biofuels. These crops are converted into fuels using second generation techniques. But again, the idea is they are genetically modified to make sure that they are best suitable to create biofuels. Some of these fuels are considered carbon negative also, because when you modify them genetically, you can make them in such a manner that they in fact pull out or absorb carbon from the environment. So it can be friendly for the environment in a positive manner. These are different generations of biofuels right now. Next news related to fuel once again, but slightly different. Railways is planning to start using methanol blended diesel. Again, E for ethanol was for petrol blending. M for methanol is for diesel blending. So there is a new kind of fuel that is now being looked into. Methanol Diesel 15, MD15. The idea is to blend 15% methanol with diesel and to use it in railway engines. That is the entire idea. The research organization related to the railways has found out that this fuel can be extremely cost effective. Even if we mix 15% methanol with diesel, it can lead to savings of thousands of crore. Methanol is a non-polluting versatile fuel and can fully or partially replace petrol or diesel or liquefied petroleum gas as well. It can be used in the locomotives that the railway uses. To remember this, methanol can be used in railways, marine sector, generators, etc. This methanol can also be used as a substitute to hydrogen-based fuel systems as well, since it burns very, very efficiently in all internal combustion engines and has almost zero emissions of any sulfur oxides and nitrous oxides. It can be produced using natural gas, Indian high ash coal, biomass, etc. MSW's municipal solid waste. So it can be produced using any of these, and that is why the potential as well as the application can be extremely useful going ahead. Another related story is white hydrogen. A few months back, major deposits of white hydrogen were found in France, and the entire world looked towards France in hope that this may be the beginning of something good. As I said earlier, there are different types of hydrogen. The color suggests the production process, how is it created, is it polluting the environment or not. So basically, white hydrogen is something that is trapped in between the rocks, and when you derive it out of there, that is how white hydrogen actually is found. So it's naturally occurring within the Earth's crust. Hydrogen itself is extremely abundant, but the problem is you can't really find hydrogen alone. Whenever you say hydrogen is found, it is usually along with some other molecules. Hydrogen has a lot of hope for the future because it has a potential to be used in clean energy initiatives, simply in those industries specifically which have a lot of emission burden. For example, industries such as aviation, shipping, steel production, which have a very, very high emission load. In all of these industries, hydrogen has a potential of being used. The combustion process of this white hydrogen produces only water, and it is highly eco-friendly even as compared to solar and wind energy. The reason being, even if you look at solar energy, yes, solar energy is environment friendly, but when you make these huge solar panels, it has a problem of their own. To make solar panels, you'll make them in a factory, that will be polluting the environment. What about the solar panels whose life is over? Where do you dispose the solar waste? So solar waste disposal is still a big problem that has not been solved around the world so far. However, with hydrogen, since its byproduct will only be water, that makes it extremely easy for the environment also to be used even in large numbers. White hydrogen is estimated to cost around $1 per kilogram, much lower than green hydrogen. As I told you, green hydrogen, which is being produced in many parts of the world, one of the limiting factors of its use is that it is still costing significantly high as compared to other fuels, and unless the cost reduces, it will be difficult to use it on a very large scale. Deposits of white hydrogen have been found in many parts of the world, including US, Eastern Europe, Russia, France, Australia, Mali, and Oman. Next, another fuel related story. The Indian government has announced mandatory biogas blending for domestic use from 2025-26. Basically, the CNG that you use or the PNG that you use for domestic purposes, the government of India says you now have to mix biogas in it compulsorily in some small fraction so that we can increase its use going forward. Let's see what the government has said. By April 2025, there will be mandatory blending of compressed biogas with natural gas at least 1%. This will be used for automobiles and household. Then by 2028, the government will increase this blending up to 5% by 2028 so that our dependence on natural gas again reduces. As you know, India imports huge quantities of natural gas from countries around the world such as Qatar, and India does not want to be dependent on these countries, and that is why we are trying to see how can we reduce our dependence and start the blending process. The bio-CNG is also called as biomethane. It's a clean burning transportation fuel. It can be made using a lot of different types of materials such as agricultural waste, food waste, even the sewage sludge. All of these can be used to produce what you call as the bio-CNG. The government of India has been running multiple schemes towards giving a push to compressed biogas. There is something called the SATAT scheme. SATAT stands for Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation Scheme, under which 5,000 compressed biogas plants were envisaged by 2023. The objective was to encourage those entrepreneurs who want to invest in this field, set up these plants so that they can now sell this and they can supply this gas to public sector oil companies as well, who will be blending it. Then there was the Gobardhan scheme, which stands for Galvanizing Organic Bio Agro Resources Dhan. It's again an initiative to boost setting up of biogas, compressed biogas and compressed natural gas plants, again to have enough supply for industries who want to go ahead with the blending processes in their manufacturing. This brings us to the end of this class. Once again, I hope you found it useful. In order to get the PDF of this lecture, join the Telegram channel. The link is in the description of this video. Also, do hit the subscribe button. Invite your other friends also who are preparing for the UPSC exam. Thank you so much. Have a good day ahead. Jai Hind.